Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about Marginalia. I was listening to this podcast where they were talking about the time around the pandemic. And one of the guys on the podcast was saying that he wanted a project that he could play around with and work with on his spare time. And of course, if you are going into this kind of mindset where you are building something in your spare time, you might do a notes app, you might do a planning app, you might do some small game or something like that. But he wrote a search engine. So that was his main thing. He saw that he didn't really like how other search engines were handling data and so on and scraping the internet, and also a lot more commercial stuff, a lot more ads and so on. So she wanted to build something that was open source and were very performant when it comes to searching. And when he was talking about this, he talked about how he set it up and what kind of servers he were running and so on. And it was quite a lot, but I thought maybe I could set it up locally, run an instance and see how hard is it actually run the search engine. And I looked at his repository. There is a lot of good documentation there. But it's a little bit strange and it's more tailored to the actual usage of the search engine, of course. But if you want to get into it, you could look at the development pages, you can look at the installation pages and so on. It's not that complicated. I will not go in detail into how to install this. It should be installed in one particular way. You should install it as multiple Docker images, perhaps in the Kubernetes cloud, so you can balance things out and so on. I didn't do that because when I tried to set it up in a Docker environment, it said that I didn't have the right CPUs in order to run this, or the right support in my CPU, but I was able to run the locally installed version, which is more for development purposes, not for production use, but I'm going to show you that today. So if you transition over here, we can see that I have installed a couple of things here. I have Zookeeper and MariaDB, so I'm running a database server, I'm running Zookeeper. I think during the build process you also needed some extra libraries, you need some libu ring or something like that in order to do the build. But it's pretty much a Java application that you are running on your host. And depending on what the version, you need different Java versions. So the latest one is running on Java 24, of course. This one that I'm running now is the latest stable, I believe, and that needed the Java 22. So I have started this up here, and I think I even set Java 24 up here. So I'm actually running Java 24. I'm running it on one of my test servers behind me in the rack. And what you do when you actually are running this then is that you are setting up, you're doing an install, running this install script, and it will install a couple of directories and also a lot of different things that you will need when you run the actual search engine. So this is more of a data directory. And then you do this Gradle assemble, which will create the tar file with the binaries. So I unpack that tar file here, and then unpack that, and then in the Marginalia bin directory, there you have the actual binaries. So I will run those, and the first thing I will start here, I will say, okay, the VMSA home is search Marginalia, where I installed the data before. I also set up a database called VMSA prod, I believe, _prod. And then I just start this control script here. So if we start that, we will say that it will be hosted on port 7000 and talk to 70, and also with the RPC call over 7001. And then you say, here is my Zookeeper instance. So that's the local host here. So that is one service you could run, the controller service, which keeps track on different things and install these kind of not safe for work filters and such things. Next service we have here is another instance. We are running a query instance. This is what is actually doing the searching. So we have a control, a query, which is searching. So I put that on port 7002 and RPC on 7003. Again, Zookeeper. So we will install that, start that. And the third and last service that I'm running at the moment is the indexing service, of course. So the same setup here. We are just running index and a couple of other ports instead. And the way it works is that you send command to a queue and say, I want you to start indexing things now. I want this kind of data imported and I want you to process this data. So it scrapes data while it's crawling. Then it processes data in order to create the index data, and then you load the data into your index. So now that we have started these services, there is also some kind of dating service where you could have different domains and you could say pretty much swipe right, swipe left if you want that domain or not. I'm not sure if that is something that you should run, but there is also another browsing one where you can rate domains and so on. Could be interesting. But if we switch over here and look at this domain here, we have an overview page where we see what is going on here. We are running currently one control, one index, one query service. Of course, we can run multiple of each of these. We could have multiple indexing services and multiple querying services to actually load balance our workload here, of course. And if we go into node 1 here on the index, we can also look at the storage. So here we see that we have things stored in this area. We have some crawl data here. This is what I have crawled, a couple of domains. We have process data. This is data that has been read from different hosts. I have read in all of Wikipedia to this data index. It was a couple of gigabytes there, I think 100 gigabytes or something like that. The running Stack Exchange, that was also hundreds of gigabytes. And also Marginalia at the moment. And it does backups of this. We have snapshots of loaded things. And we can also export the data. So that is pretty much it. We have some configuration and we have actors here. So here you can turn on and off different process spawners that should be running in order to do different workloads. And if we go into actions here, we can see that we can do a new crawl. We can do process dev data, we can load process data, and we can partition index. If we go into these down here, we have, for instance, encyclopedia load. If we go in there, this is the Wikipedia load. So what you are doing is going to this address and download a sim package and put that into your upload directory. And then I'm pretty sure that you're not seeing this because this page looks pretty blank. You see that you just have these indexes over here, but there are actually these kind of process or these kind of radio buttons over here. I miss them all the time. So I was looking at something, pressed a button, nothing happened, and I couldn't really figure out why doesn't it load things. So what you're doing is choosing a sim and then sideload this. So you sideload Wikipedia, for instance, you sideload Stack Exchange and so on. That is one workload you can do. The other one is crawling data when you don't have prepared data sources and you don't have that many options of prepared data sources. You can sideload Reddit as well. And in order to crawl, this took me a while to figure out as well, you need to go into domains and you can add a domain or multiple domains and you can manage domains. So we see here that I have Y Combinator, my site, should be able to scrape that right, and Wikipedia and Marginalia.new. So these are the things that should be, it should try to fetch data from the different domains. And when you are actually doing the indexing or the crawling, you go in here and select new crawl. And here I tried multiple tries to trigger crawl, it said, but it didn't do anything. And you see here that you have this radio button here, and it wasn't lighted up, so I didn't see it. So crawl without referencing existing crawl data, that is using the domains. So if you check that, it will use the domains that I have already used. Or you can have crawl data that you already have in the database, which means that it will look for more pages or updated sources in that crawl data. So if we trigger this one, and it asks me, are you really sure? And then it goes back here, and we will see that we will have a process started up here pretty soon. So the crawler is starting and running. So that will create crawl data that we later can process. So if we go into process crawl data, we see that we have some data that we already crawled here. So we can process that and then load it automatically. And if I trigger that, we will have a different process that is running here that is handling that part of the process to repurpose or take data and reformat it in a way that it is searchable and then able to put into the database and actually search from. So this is pretty much the back end of this kind of tooling, where you can add extra information and run different jobs in order to get your search data in there. So this is very interesting for me. I really like these kind of interfaces and working around and figuring out how to use these kind of things. Then we have the query service, and it is as you expect. It's just something where you can search. Pretty much I search for MySQL and I get some hits on my page here. I get some hits on Y Combinator, and I get some hits on Wikipedia and so on. Let's see if we search for AMD, not AMDS, let's see AMD. You can see here that Y Combinator has more information on AMD, but I'm also building a cluster from scratch here. Had some information. We could look at, let's see, kill process, see if we have anything there. Yeah. Then we have Charles George Gordon Wikipedia, something that it got a hit on. And then you can go in and read more about that information on the different sites. So it doesn't really store that much in the database. It's just so you can get this index up and running in order to find information. That is what this is for. It's a search engine. So this was just a very quick view into how Marginalia works. I'm not recommending anyone to actually set it up and running it in your environment. I really like these kind of things. I needed to try it out, and I think it's very interesting. Of course, if you have an office with a lot of documents and so on, you could set up something like this, run a couple of instances, crawl your backend data in order to make it searchable very quickly for your employees. That could be a use case, perhaps. It can crawl PDF data and such also in order to index it. So it has a lot of those kind of functionalities. But I think still it's very interesting to have an open source environment, open source alternative to a huge search index. And it's hosted as well. So you could go to, I think, marginaliasearch.com. There you have the actual search engine in a new way. So this is the new interface, and here you have the old interface. So you have a difference in the interface, of course, for the production ready environment. My environment is more for testing and so on, and doesn't really have any branding on it. So this was what I wanted to cover today. I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you learned something today. If you liked this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you want to support the channel, there are affiliate links and donation links in the description down below. And I really hope to see you in the next video.